There is something, though, that does feel very right about this matchup for the last day of the season.
I think they've been the best two teams in the competition for certainly the back end of the comp anyway. I think everyone started a little bit shaky this year with the World Cup last year, obviously, but these two teams have been the best two teams and though deserve their spot in the grand final. Let's hope it's going to be, I think it's going to be a classic game. I think Brisbane have a game that can worry Penrith a little bit, but I still think Penrith will be too good on the day. I think their defence is just too good. They complete too well. They're the best attacking side, the best defensive side in the competition. It's going to be a cracker of a game. I think it's going to be a brilliant game.
It's a New South Wales v Queensland grand final too, which we haven't seen since 2005, the Tigers and the Cowboys. But Gus, is it what Gal mentioned there, the fact that this is probably the only team in the Broncos that can push the reigning premiers?
Yeah, halfway through this year, people were talking about a possible three-peat for the Panthers, and I said, well, don't worry about three. They could win 5 or 6. But I think the back half of this season has shown that these two teams will be competing each other at least for the next 2 or 3 years and maybe 4 years. I think this will be the real battle. It reminds me a little bit about 4 years ago when Panthers made their first grand final up against the might of the Melbourne Storm. Probably lost that grand final on experience, and Melbourne won it on experience, but since that time, the balance of power, we saw it really change the other night with a 38-4 victory to the Panthers. And I can see that this rivalry between the new merging Broncos and this brilliant Panthers team, which is a generational team, is going to go on not just this year, for years to come. And they're going to dominate this competition for some time.
Is it as simple for Penrith, if you shut down Reece Walsh, you win the comp?
No.
Is there more to the... Like, Reece Walsh has been in sublime form, but what's the threat for Penrith if they're going to upset... for Brisbane if they're going to upset Penrith?
What's the threat from Brisbane? They've got threats all over the field. I really like Katoni, Staggs and Farnsworth because they're players that make things happen on their own ability. Adam Reynolds is the governor of this side. He's the one that's going to show the tempo and... I don't think he'll feed Reece Walsh early. I think he'll probably try to play away from him a little bit just to see how the Panthers' defence reacts, who they're concentrating on, and where the threats might come. But it's the forwards, Flegler and these fellas and Big Payne Haas, and unless you're accommodating them, it opens the way for Ezra Mann and Reynolds to do their stuff. Reece Walsh is the luxury item. He's the one that can take advantage of everything that's happening up in front. The way to stop Reece Walsh is to stop what's happening from the other players, and unless you do that, you're not going to stop Reece Walsh. It's as simple as that. All year I've been saying that I think the Broncos, probably not this year but next year, they've made a great run to this stage of the season. They're fast and they're fit and they're playing with a lot of confidence. It's just how the grand final occasion, the other side's coming for their 4th in a row.
Do you think it's a case that you got to lose, the old saying, you got to lose one to win one? Do you think that's the case for the Broncos this year?
There's a lot of people in that Broncos coaching staff that have been around for a while, though. Kevy Walters, Alan Langer, John Cartwright have all been a part of premiership winning sides and as coaches and players. And I think that Broncos are steeped in tradition of premiership victories. But again, I'm looking more at the experience of the other side. This is their 4th grand final in a row. They're going for a three-peat in premierships. And as I said, it's a generational team. I'm quite sure that they'll do it. I think they'll be too strong for the Broncos, but it sets up for what the future years are going to look like.
I actually think the Broncos have got probably more X factor in their side, the Broncos. Like you say, just shut down Walsh. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they've got X factor all over the park. So I think they got more X factor than the Penrith Panthers do, but I just think the Penrith Panthers, time spent played together, how good they are defensively, how good they are at their completion, I just think they'll be too good on the day. I think it'll be close, but I think they'll be too good.
You mentioned the inexperience factor there. It's only Adam Reynolds and Kurt Capewell in that Broncos side that have been there on grand final day before, Gal. So if you're sitting down with your team at the start of grand final week, what's your advice if you were leading?
Well, them leaders would have told them what the week's like. And look, Gus mentioned the coaching staff. All their coaching staff are legends of the game, played in a number of grand finals, so they would know what to do. I think you just got to enjoy the week. That's the way I approach it. I was obviously my one and only grand final. You've got to enjoy it. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot of media, there's a lot of press, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of people that want your autograph, want your photo. There's plenty going on, but you just got to enjoy it and lap it up. It's what you want to do your whole life. It's what you play rugby league for. You got to sit back and enjoy it and love every moment of it. And if you do that and you don't treat it as a burden, you don't treat it like, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, you'll get to the game fresh, ready and happy, and you'll play your best footy.
Do you see similarities in Brisbane, where they are now, to where Penrith were when they started this run? Not so much the way they play, but the reality was Penrith had a team that were playing on unders, and they got value out of them for a number of years until they started to demand big money and they moved players on. Same with Brisbane at the moment. They're entering that window where they've got some players on great value for money deals, and then they can move into that next phase when obviously they're going to lose some players, but they can capitalise down the next 2 or 3 years.
I see a lot of similarities. Like I remember playing the Penrith Panthers in semi-finals. The majority of this team was there. You know, Cleary's, Yo's, Martins. They were kids, and we'll beat them back. You know, I'm talking 2017-18 type era, and then look at them, they've come good. Whereas this Broncos team, you've got to remember, they won a wooden spoon in 2020. It's only 3 years ago. So the club has done an amazing job to stick with this group of players, this core group of players, and show faith in them, keep them all together, bring them through that tough period. Now they're playing grand finals. So I do see similarities there without a doubt.
Already tonight, Gus, in the news, there's been a hamming up of the rivalry between Jerome Luai and Reece Walsh after what we saw unfold at Origin, with the two going face to face, and a little bit of a, well, I can't call it a headbutt, but a head push between the two.
Yeah, see, this is media, see? This is what media do, because we've only got one game this week. We've got 240 journalists that have all got to find an angle for one game. So they'll go back through the archives and see who spat at each other, or who called each other a name, or what happened in the past, and they dig up the archives, trying to create something, because they've all got to write something different. They'll all have rivalry out there, and it'll be a wonderful event.
I love how he distanced himself from media.
I'm not part of you blokes, I can tell you that.
It's a hell of a clash, though, and it just adds that little bit of salt and pepper to the week, Dad.
100%. Oh, I love it. I love the bit onto it.
You milk that stuff. You
100%.
Oh,
Make a bit of cash from that.
And Selwyn Cobber, didn't he call Jerome Luai a grub as well? There's plenty of spice between these two teams.
Any matchup across the park for you, Gal, whether it's in the backs, I mean, you've got two of the best packs in the game too.
Fisher Harris.
Littered with Origin stars.
Fisher Harris, Payne Haas.
Oh, yeah.
Like, seriously, just the big boys in the middle. I'm an advocate of big boys in the middle. I think whoever wins that battle in the middle field doesn't win the game. The old saying, you know, the forwards win the match, the backs decide by how many, but I do think it's true. You've got to gain ascendancy in the middle of the field to allow these outside backs to have time and space, and I can't wait to see that battle. It's going to be unreal.
Fisher Harris or Payne Haas, best prop in the game?
Payne Haas at the moment, I think. Yeah. I think he's on the way up. Yeah. Whereas Fisher Harris has been the best for the past couple of years. He's probably starting to level a little bit. I don't offend you there, big fella, but obviously Payne Haas is on the way up. He's a great player.
Yeah,
I won't be doing that. No.
One of the real keys to the Panthers' attack and why it functions so beautifully is the way Asai Yeo commands the middle part of the field as a lock forward, and with his ball playing, linking up with both Luai and Cleary. And I thought Queensland did a really good job on them in the first couple of Origins, cutting down his time and space. And Asai is a very dominant player, and he's a very experienced player, but he's also still conservative. He doesn't push passes, he doesn't like to make mistakes, and he doesn't... So if you get up on him quickly, he'll tend to err on the side of caution. Now, Panthers have actually become really good at playing off the back of that. If he decides to run or short pass rather than out the back, they're good at setting up and going again. But I'm just wondering whether or not the Broncos players would have learned out of what happened in Origin and what Billy Slater had them doing in pressuring Asai Yeo to limit his impact on the game. I think that's going to be a crucial part. That's one of the things I'm looking forward to see what their tactics are on Sunday.